So I don't care where you are fishing right now, winter is on its way out the door. Now, whether that door is flung open, ready for spring as it is here in Texas, or you guys live in the north, Minnesota, Ohio, New York, and your door is just a little bit cracked open, there is still stuff to learn and to get prepared for to become a better bass angler come this springtime, because trust me, it's the best time of the year to catch fish. And one of the most fun ways that I know of to catch them in that late winter, early springtime is going to be on a reaction bait, a moving bait. The one that comes to most people's minds when it comes to that pre-spawn time period, especially where I live down south, is the red lipless crankbait. Throwing a crankbait as a whole is an amazing way to catch bass. I don't care if you're in a pond or a giant reservoir, you can catch them on a crankbait. But there's one crankbait besides the obvious red lipless crankbait that I think gets severely forgotten about, and at least in my experience, I forgot about it for years and years and years until this winter. What is that forgotten bass fishing lure? My name's Tyler, and let's talk about it. Well, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back to Tyler's Real Fishing. My goal here on this channel is to help you guys become better bass anglers, so if that's what you want to do, become a better angler, hit that subscribe button. Now, for those of y'all who are seasoned bass anglers, I don't have to explain why the red lipless crankbait catches so many fish. You guys know where to throw it, you know why to throw it, you know why a bass eats it, and so I'll have a timestamp down here if you guys want to skip to that forgotten lure that I talked about. But for those of you guys who are just beginning bass fishing, maybe you don't have a whole lot of experience in that winter to spring transition, I want to talk real quick about the red lipless and crankbaits as a whole. A crankbait is a hard plastic lure that usually has two treble hooks, one kind of in the front to the nose and one hanging off the back. Usually they have a bill that allows that lure to dive a certain depth. This one is a lipless crankbait, so it doesn't have that lip, doesn't have that bill. The bill is kind of the top of the crankbait, as you guys can see right there. That's what allows this crankbait to dive. A lipless is also a sinking lure, as opposed to most crankbaits that are actually a floating lure. Either way, they are both great at casting and retrieving. It doesn't take a whole lot of skill on the part of the angler. You can add some pauses, some jerks. You can lift the crankbait off the bottom, let it sink back down. But for the most part, I catch most of my fish, and most guys that I talk to catch most of their crankbait fish, just casting them out there, reeling them back in, occasionally pausing it, and then continuing the retrieve. Crankbaits are amazing at catching fish in this time period specifically because bass move a ton. Whether you are in a pond or a giant lake, bass are going to move from deeper water to shallower water. Not all at the same time, not all in the same place, but bass in that pre-spawn time period are on the move. I can tell you guys from fishing all around the country for bass, that pre-spawn time period is when the bass move the most. So if you catch them in one section of your pond one day and you have an entire day of sunshine and a warm night, it warms up that water, or you have an incredibly big cold front come through, shock that water temperature down 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees, those bass are going to be moving. And so covering water, even if the water temperature is still in like the high 40s, low 50s, covering water is still going to be the best way to go in order to find and locate fish. A lipless crankbait is really awesome for that because it is very versatile. Like I said, it is a sinking crankbait, unlike most of them out there, including the secret crankbait we're going to talk about here. And so the sinking ability of this crankbait means that you can throw it up in 1 foot of water, and as soon as that sucker hits the water, you are reeling it back in to keep it above the bottom and so it doesn't get snagged on any sticks, rocks, or grass, or you can let this thing sink as deep as you want. I would say any deeper than like 20 feet, and that's reeling it really, really slow. A lipless crankbait is not very effective, but you can fish it effectively anywhere from 15 feet all the way up into 1 foot, 6 inches of water. It is great for targeting fish in that pre-spawn time period as they move from their winter haunts to where they spawn. Whether it's way back in a creek or just in a little main lake cut, you're going to need to cover water in order to keep up with those fish. But one thing that I feel like a lot of anglers don't quite understand is that not all the bass move shallow at the same time. And I'm going to tell a quick story here to help extrapolate on this point. So I've got a good buddy. I grew up fishing against him in high school, and he loved electronics. Austin's, he's got, two 15-inch Solix units back here, a 12 and a 15 up front. He's got live scope, 360, everything. He loves fishing offshore. And I always wondered how he was catching so many big fish, basically at all times of the year. And he would continually tell me that there are always offshore fish to be caught. And my mindset, and I don't know if this is what I learned from mentors of mine or Bassmaster Magazine or just kind of common fishing knowledge, I thought that when the water gets cold and it is winter time, those fish go out deep and they suspend. They don't hardly bite anything. If they're even on the bottom, they only bite a drop shot or a Ned rig or a football jig, really, really slow. I did not think that especially big bass would eat anything moving fast when that water is cold. But one really cool thing about this 10 days for a 10 series that I've been doing, which by the way, if you haven't watched it, pause this video right now. I will have something linked in the video description for y'all to go watch. I have really been targeting just big bass in the coldest months of the year here in Texas. I fished in water that was, I think 44, 45 was my coldest water temperature, and I fished water when I started the series in the beginning of January that was 52 to 54, and so at least for Texas, that's pretty cold water. I know for you guys who live in the northern country, 55-degree water, bass are basically spawning then. But for us, that is still kind of that winter, fall to winter to pre-spawn transition. The water's anywhere from 40s to 50s. And so I thought, when the water's cold, bass knowledge says that you can't throw anything fast. And let me just tell you guys something, that is not true, even in the slightest. This series has taught me that one lure can catch fish when nothing else can offshore. And I'm saying that because I would try an Alabama rig, I would try a football jig, I would try a drop shot, a Ned rig. And crazy enough, as you guys saw in one of my last 10 days for 10 episodes, I couldn't get him to hit anything but this forgotten about lure right here, the deep crankbait. When I say deep crankbait, I say anything north, anything deeper than a 5XD or a Series 5. So anything that dives deeper than 14 feet of water, 12 to 14 feet of water, specifically talking about the 6 and 8XD that dive anywhere from, 15 to 20 to 21 feet of water. This here is the 8XD, and this here is the 6XD. Now, this video right here is not necessarily targeted at shallow body of water anglers or shallow pond anglers, because you literally can't throw a deep crankbait from the bank because it's going to reach its maximum, diving depth of, like I said, 14 to 20 feet of water, and you're going to be dredging up all kinds of mud and nastiness on your way back up to the bank. So this is not for you pond anglers. You guys should still be throwing crankbaits in your, winter to pre-spawn to spawn transition. Still a great way to catch them, but the forgotten lure is not necessarily for you guys. That's for y'all who are in bass boats, john boats, kayaks, or you have a deeper, Corey, deeper pond situation where you can maybe make a longer cast to deeper water, and only the last 10% of the cast you're actually, dredging the bottom with your crankbait. And I think the only reason why I never threw the deep crankbait was because I knew how fast the retrieve was on this thing. Even if you are slow winding a deep crankbait, it is still hitting down there on the bottom, wobbling back and forth. The 6 and 8XD are not known for being a very tight wobbling bait. They're really kicking down there. And I thought to myself, Tyler, you should never throw that lure because the bass are lethargic. They're not going to be chasing anything. You can't catch them on a deep crankbait. But one thing I noticed, especially in the last, I think episode 3 of 10 Days for a 10, and then episode 5, is that if you have fish that are anywhere near the bottom, especially ones that are sitting on the bottom in wintertime, that you could either find with traditional sonar, live scope, side scan, or just knowing where the deeper sections of your body of water are. You can even find that using a football jig or a Texas rig to know how deep an area is. If you can find relatively harder bottom in an area that is close to where a spawning situation would happen, so maybe a drop off or a ledge that's really close to a spawning flat, you're going to find fish there literally right up to the spawn. I guarantee you right now, even though we had a warm day outside, I did walk a pond. There are no bass on beds as of today that I'm filming this video here in Dallas. I guarantee you, I could go out to a lake right now. I could catch, regular size fish, 2 to 5 to 6 pounders, throwing a shallow diving crankbait like, a flat-sided crankbait or that lipless that I talked about. Or I could slide out and still catch some fish, usually bigger ones as y'all saw in this series, by throwing a deep crankbait. It is not something that you can't catch fish on because the fish are lethargic. Those fish still can be triggered. This video is probably a little bit late for you guys, but for those of y'all who live in Tennessee or anywhere north of that, this video is going to apply to you guys up until your fish get on bed. So the next month to 2.5 months, a deep crankbait will still catch fish. Even if you think they're only gonna bite a lethargic type lure, I watched fish during this series that I didn't think would be able to be triggered by any sort of lure because they wouldn't bite a slow moving lure. Literally, I watched dozens of fish follow a deep crankbait and eat it as it was buzzing over their heads. So even if the water was 48 degrees, the deep crankbait is not just a summertime lure for out there on brush piles, on ledges, for those schools of bass that get together. It can catch big ones in the winter and pre-spawn. Now, of course, there's going to be a time period where it's just too much fun to go up shallow and throw a vibrating jig, to flip around a Texas rig ocho, to throw a topwater frog if the weather is nice enough. Of course, I'm going to go do that. It's probably a lot more fun, but some of those bigger bass only slide up to spawn, to feed up real quickly and then spawn for just a short amount of time. And so I think my buddy Austin was right, that your chances of catching a lifetime bass are better out in deeper water for the majority of the time. I'm not going to say you can't catch an 8 to 10 to 14.5 pound bass shallow. You can. But if you want to go out there and have a chance of catching a giant, or your shallow bite just isn't working for whatever reason, you thought the pre-spawn bite began, those fish still might be out a little bit deeper, so go find those small schools of fish, throw a deep crankbait right over their head, and you'll be surprised at the success that you guys are going to find. So let's hop on the water real quick. I've got some fish catches from the day after my 10 days episode down in East Texas that I filmed probably a month and a half ago, which is really when I discovered how much I had forgotten about this lure. Let's hop into those catches right now. There's one. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, are you bigger? Are you bigger too? I don't think so, but you're not small. You're not small either. Gosh, you are doing such a weird thing right now. You have it choked too, holy cow. Absolutely choked. Get in here, baby. And look at how he ate that deep crankbait. It is down his gullet. I have not had a fish bite a deep crankbait that good in a long time. I'm gonna get a picture of that for the gram. He got it so deep I need pliers, wow. Oh, and he is bleeding. We're gonna let you go as soon as possible. Thank you, friend. But just like summertime, it's important to get back out there because those fish could still be ganged up. Is that a fish? I don't know. If it is a fish, he's small. Yep, I definitely have a stick. A nice size stick, though. Look at that guy. There's one. Oh, did he get off? Nope, I still got him. I still got him. Man, they are loving to hit it right beneath the boat today. I don't think you're any size. We'll fight you like you are. You're not. Bring it up in here. And these fish in the wintertime really get that like nice pale color. They are not the pretty green, you know, striped largemouth bass that we see in the spring and summer. And that guy is cold. There's one. Had to switch, oh gosh, press the button. Had to switch my angle on him. And is that one bigger? That one's, oh my gosh. That one's the biggest one yet. He's got his mouth open to me. He's not even that big, but he's bigger for sure. Go to the back to get him. Come on. Oh, gosh, dang it. That guy barely had it, tip of his mouth, and he got off. Well, that's good. I just switched angles on him and got a bite. See if we can do it again. There's one. I'm going to spot lock right here. I know exactly where I made a cast to, and I'm going to make that exact same cast next time. Are you bigger, or is your mouth just open to me? Oh, gosh. I love living in Texas in the winter. This is awesome. But really, like I said, this applies to anywhere, not just Texas. As long as your water temp is above 40, I think you've got a chance of catching a fish on a crankbait all winter long. Bass might need the retrieve a little bit slower. They might need it a little bit deeper. The color might change, but the fact still remains, bass love a crankbait. Ugh. And the only reason why I netted this fish, not because of the size, but because I didn't want to lose him. He only had one little treble hook in the top of his mouth, but look at that beautiful winter bass. I apologize if the lighting's a little bit bright, but that's a beautiful fish. Heck yeah. Adios. I knew it. I knew that's what I just did. The air rig showed me exactly, oh my gosh, that's a bigger one. That's a bigger one. Wow. Wow, the A-rig pulled a lot of the fish off the bottom so I could see exactly where they were. God, I can't get them in the net. Bring him in. Bring him in. Let's go, baby. Let's stinking go. Stinking 5-pounder. We love ourselves a 5-pounder on the wintertime 6XD, baby. Yum. That right there is something I'm definitely not going to complain about. Oh, GoPro died. Who cares? 5 stinking pounder. This girl gets a special release on the big camera. See ya. There's one. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you big? Are you big mama? What you doing, mama? You are not fighting very hard yet, which makes me think you have your mouth open. Yeah, you're a nice one, but you're not big. You're not big. Bring it in here. Man, what a stinking fun day. Might as well end it with this fish right here. Hey, if you enjoyed this content, hit that subscribe button. My goal, either on my channel or any channel I appear on and do work on, is to help people become better bass anglers. And so if I accomplish my goals today and you think you're a better bass angler, hit that subscribe button, because guess what? It's free.